Hello chess friends, this is International Master Valeri Lilov for the Remote Chess Academy, and today we're going to be talking about the concept of planning. And the most interesting part of this is that I'm not just going to talk about planning in general, but I'm going to talk about how you can think about planning in the most challenging situations of the game. So some people actually have came up with the question, and it's a very interesting question: how do we defend? Because defending is not exactly a part of our plan. We don't want to be defending, we want to be attacking, and yet sometimes we do have to do this. Sometimes we do have to play more passive positions. So I'm going to try to really grab the idea on how you can think about these challenging situations and go with creating a solid plan inside them. So let's talk about a very interesting game. So we're going to actually start with e4. Basically, that's for black. So after e4, black could play, let's see, c5. White plays knight f3, d6. Then there is d4, and generally black could exchange takes. I mean, Sicilian is the most popular opening of all, and there is a good point to that. I mean, it's the only opening that provides a quick counter-attacking resource. It's just, I mean, obviously that comes at a cost, but it is known as the most active this way. Now this is quite interesting. So like after knight it takes to the d4, black has plenty of different opportunities, yet actually the thing is that he chose to play with knight f6, knight c3, and a6. So what we see here is the Najdorf. Now the interesting part of this is we're going to see, this is a game that was played by Garry Kasparov. So I mean, I'd like you to understand this is a great, in my opinion, a great game, because Kasparov is really playing at his best in this game, and you will be kind of amazed to realize that it was just a blitz game. Like who would believe? But it is beautiful to see how he was able to plan up successfully in a blitz game out of a challenging, or at least seemingly challenging position. Okay, so this is really interesting. So watch out. This is also about how to plan in complicated type of set. White plays h3, e6, and g4. Now, obviously, white's plan seems a little confusing. I mean, why is he really doing this? Like, that just feels like it's wrong. But then it actually makes sense. He just wants to get more space on the king's side. So it's a fairly interesting idea. After that, black played h6, bishop g2. Now, I have to tell you that the right setup is almost everything. It creates what I would call the backbone of your position, and it will eventually help you to get a more or less successful type of strategy. Now, what I would say is most necessary in those kind of positions is that you gain more space. Now, how do we exactly achieve this? Well, there are different ways. I say that the most important of those is to simply take away the space of our opponent. Now, we could do it in different ways, but one of the better ways to do it is to actually play g5. I love that move. If you're actually wondering about this, I really, really like the move of g5. This is the kind of move that says, I'm not going to stay behind with my structure, and I'm going to take the shot of getting more space to you. Now, the question is, of course, isn't that a little too much weakening? And the answer to that question is no. Weakness is considered either something theoretically weak, like something that you believe he could exploit immediately, or theoretically, or maybe something you can pressure upon. Good thing is that white can't do any of those right now. And that's a very valuable idea, because if he is unable to take any immediate advantage, we've got good opportunities. So after g5, black is setting up for the way to get his bishop right up on the g7. He could quite nicely follow it through with the knight and a couple other pieces, and this feels quite fine at this point. I like that. So after g5, white played bishop to the e3, and this was the moment where basically black played knight bd7, queen e2, knight e5, castles, knight to d7. Now, this may sound strange because, okay, planning is about improving the pieces, yes, But more importantly, it's about developing them first. So what the hell is black doing? Why is he making that kind of move? You have to think, one of the things that you need to understand is that you have to think about the overall construction. The overall construction means exactly where you want to position your pieces in a sequence, and what will they do there in the longer run. So black didn't care so much about, oh, that's a nice knight on the d7. He wanted to think long run about what these pieces will actually try to do. Like, for example, the idea being that after the knight comes to the d7 square, he's going to open the opportunity for his queen to come out to f6. That on its own will actually help the bishop to go to the g7, so we can get a great space and a chance to advance. So those are the kind of things that went through black's mind as he was going. It's never about just one idea, but oftentimes it is about really figuring out a couple and then figuring out, okay, which one is going to work a little bit better. And yes, so now in that case, we have a nice shot. We can think about the queen coming up against the towards the f6, and yes, it does look nice. What happens now? Well, white played h4. He was definitely looking for a way to shoot at the attack, and he wanted to possibly advance right towards the g5 pawn. It makes a great sense for him to do this. Black played rook g8, h takes to the g, h takes to the g, and king b1. So it looks like he actually got the shot to just move that king out. Now, what does black do? I mean, it doesn't look like any of those moves help black's development, and yet, it doesn't feel like this is such a terrible position. You continue getting more space. I say that inside every successful plan, the core element is space. Yes, I agree. There are some situations in which space is not as important, and you might say, okay, we could counter the opponent who's spent more time in defending and trying to get that, trying to keep that space true. But the real key in this moment is actually that we have a great amount of space for black, greater amount of space for black, and then black is going to utilize it in order to challenge white and keep him backward. Now that is a great resource. Very good. With this in mind, of course, things start to look better. White played a3, bishop b7, bishop c1, rook c8, which was a great move. So black's rook is actually coming up. We get the opportunity to advance possibly against c3. White's a little behind, and this looks good. Yes, it does. What happens next after rook c8? Well, white played rook h3, I suppose, in hope to simply arrange that rook and come up with a nice position towards the c3 and whatever. It was okay. It wasn't bad. And so after the move of rook h3, it was a great moment for black to just do knight g6, bishop h1, knight d5. See, because of the great control of space that's actually happening in this position, we're not allowing white to come up with any tactics. If you control the position in such a way, you will be able to effectively keep him back. That's what white is doing right now. He effectively holds back most of white's pieces, and that gives us a great idea. We could have great ways to play queen to the f6, and maybe even the bishop can come out very quickly. There's plenty of good actions. So it's a great move. And so, yeah, after that was ultimately played, white does rook to g3 and black plays bishop e7. It's a very interesting approach that does not rely necessarily on the quality of the development as much as it actually relies on making sure those pieces can get out. And then once they get out, once they move out of where they used to be, the position can truly develop in the most efficient way possible. So that was a very interesting method of black bringing up here. Knight a2, rook h8. It's not based on development, and some people will say structurally this is wrong. Generally, it's wrong. It is. But the reality here is that what we care about is, could I get the activity that I'm looking for in order to achieve more for my position? And the answer to that question is definitely. With the line up, with the black 2 knights, with the resources that he's keeping against white, it's of course it is possible to do that. And it's more than likely that it will succeed as black continues along the way. That was very relevant, and it does work. Actually, after rook h8, white plays rook c3, rook takes the c, knight takes the c, and queen to c7. So this is also fairly great. We could see the value of it. Bishop g2, black continues to go up. And see how limited white is at all this time. It is not about, oh, is it good or is it bad? It doesn't matter. It is about the fact that white is really unable to move anywhere with his pieces. So it's very important. And just like this is great. We get the chance, in fact, if he exchanges, then we're going to recapture. And then we have this beautiful knight. It's just the rook that's out there and most of the pieces. And so actually it's a great way to go. Very strong, very valuable, and resourcefully, like dangerous. White's bad and behind no matter what we get to talk about. So it's great. The key is always hold your opponent backward. That's a great way to go. And then because we're holding him back, there is truly nothing he can do. Structure is everything. I always say it, and I always will, because that's exactly what we care most about. Can you structurally restrict the opponent and keep him back in such a position? If you could, that's all you really need. That's all you will need. And it was wonderful, actually, after that one move that was played. Apparently, white's got a bit of a problem right here. So he played alongside queen takes the c4, b takes the c4, and f3. But then black continues with rook h2, and now he's limiting white's position totally down the road. We have the active rook, the brilliant knight, and the other one that's ready to jump. White played bishop f1, but black simply continues with the move of knight f4. And it's wonderful. Knight f4. White just does that, and then after bishop to e3, there's bishop to the d8. What I really like, I'm going to tell you what I really like. What I really like about black is the strength. It's never or almost never about, oh, how do you feel? You feel good, let's do this. It's about black getting the chance or the opportunity to expand by bringing his pieces on more powerful positions, and little by little taking this to the next level. Rook takes d2, bishop takes d2, bishop b6. Because of the space, we got the right structure, and we could very easily achieve all of these things simply by making each of those pieces get better. That was a great idea, and it actually works. If you really think about it, it does work like a charm. It's a beautiful piece. It's keeping white down, and it's holding his position terribly bad. It's a great resource to go in with. Now, after the move of bishop b6, white played bishop takes to the f4, I suppose hoping to do some proper exchanges and feel good about this. So he did. Okay. Then black plays g takes f4. And now we understand why that's just not good for white. It's like the problem is obviously the d4. Then we get a problem that he has got with the the fact that black's knight is attacking the f3, and there's so much more. It's not just this. Knight ce2, and what do? Of course, we go for d5. Kasparov knew that it was all about opening up the pieces. Soon or later, when a move like this takes place, everything's gonna break open, and obviously black's possibilities are just gonna open, and everything is gonna be great. So he did it, and it was clearly superior in this position as to what he was doing. Now the bishop is gonna open, all the black pieces are gonna come out very quickly, and white was just he's not quite capable to fight all that up. He played e takes to the d5, bishop takes to the d5. Clearly this is horrible, because now we've got the f3 attack. Horrible for white, I mean. And there's just so much more. It's not just that. Bishop takes d5, knight takes g4. I found this game particularly amazing because of the fact that everything that Black did as a part of his plan was based on structure. Structure means exactly that combination of pawns and pieces that helps you to control more space and basically keeps the opponent backward. And it was great. He was really well played and solid and consistent. So there was never a chance for White to actually do anything. He was always either too backward or passively placed, or like down on the back side, unable to develop. So White plays knight takes f3 here, e4, king d5, exchange, king takes c3, e3, and now we've got the idea of playing e2. This is too hard. Structure makes it possible. So 3 major suggestions from this game. First, remember that good pawn structure, good opening formation depends on the space. Yes, in Sicilian, Black is purposefully giving away more space so that he can get more control. But also keep in mind that he's not giving it away permanently. We're not letting the opponent to attack us or do anything with it. We're just giving it temporarily. But in the long run, it helps Black to get a much more powerful position. Second, keep in mind that you have to think in a sequence. I call this outlining. Whether you're developing the pieces, thinking of a way to continue your plan, or just figuring out the best ways to attack the opponent, you must always come up with an idea of how you will get your pieces in an outline. Never just in one thought, oh, okay, I would like to do this. It's not going to work like that. Most times, or at least in the most times, it is always going to be, what is the sequence of moves? And that actually supports the other idea. You must think in the long run. If you're going to position your pieces on particular squares, you want to find out why you would like to get them there. What is the purpose or the reason for our pieces to actually reach where they want to go? And what would they do there? Because when you really get to think about it like this, you will know exactly what to expect, and you will know exactly what the position is capable of. So, resourcefully, the idea is that we get to think about each piece in terms of what it will do in the longer run. That is a great idea, and I have to tell you, very few people think like that. Most people do not actually analyze a position in such a way. So that's pretty important to consider it in such a direction. What was great about this game is that because of the space, the nice formation, and the plan out loud that Black had for each of the pieces, he was able to control all the right squares and prevent White from ever moving forward or actually shooting out against Black's development. It was good, it was effective, and it worked out greatly. So that's what I'd like to say. Now let's talk about the situation where the opponent can attack us. Now in this case, White never got the ability to attack, but some of the times, for example, playing the original Najdorf, like a lot of people like to try the Najdorf, but usually they're a little scared because the opponent is going to get to attack. For instance, let's say h6, bishop h4, we play queen c7, it castles there, bishop d3. So this is the original Najdorf in which White is ready to play g4 and g5. And it's, well, let's face it, it's a little scary. So there's no doubt about that. White just wants to keep going, and then we have this sort of a bit of a backward position that is not too perfect. So how do we play in such a case? What do we do? It's a good question. It's really a good question in my opinion. Well, here is the first thing that you would like to do. Whenever you find yourself in a position just like that, one of the things that I find very important for you to do is try to think, and I always mean it, I mean seriously, try to think of a way to restrict. Now that's kind of hard. I mean, how do we restrict a player who's ready to attack? You could do this by simply figuring out where he may be weak. Restricting can happen in different ways. It can happen by you pushing him down or exchanging his good pieces, taking them away good positions, or you might want to consider actually pushing him down by taking key squares, like the Black g5 move, which was previously played when the square was free, but could still work. Should the white knight queen go back, what we could do is to play with the move of knight of the g4. And then what we can see in this moment is that the white pawn on g5 is being totally tricked. So you can't now move no more. It's actually a very tricky thing. It cannot move to take. It cannot do anything that good. And also the other problem that I feel white will experience in this position is the fact that once that pawn is taken, we realize a brutal way on how black was able to take away the control of e5 and restrict white. It's a brilliant opening sequence, but above all else, we see that black has already taken all the necessary spots for his pieces, and he can build from that position on.